Have you ever noticed that the loudest battles in your life rarely begin with other people? They begin inside you, in a place so familiar that you mistake it for your identity. What if the greatest obstacle between you and peace has never been the world, but the invisible voice that insists it already knows the truth? Your ego does not shout because it is strong. It shouts because it is terrified. Why else would a fragile identity fight so desperately to protect itself from criticism, rejection, or failure? The cruel truth is that what hurts you most is often not what people say, but what your ego refuses to let go of. You believe you're defending your dignity, yet are you protecting your freedom or imprisoning it? Carl Jung warned that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Could your reactions be revealing a prison you never knew existed? Every argument you replay, every insult you cannot forget, every need to prove yourself leaves another invisible crack in your inner world. But what happens when those cracks become impossible to hide? The damage caused by the ego is silent, because it disguises itself as survival. Why would you question something that has protected you for years? Yet what if the protector slowly becomes your captor? Jung described the persona as the mask you present to the world. Isn't it strange how much energy is spent maintaining an image instead of discovering the person behind it? The cruel truth is that many people would rather lose themselves than risk disappointing others. The more attached you become to your mask, the more frightening authenticity feels. Have you noticed how criticism feels like an attack on your entire existence instead of a single mistake? That is not confidence speaking. It is fear wearing expensive clothes. Your ego whispers that being admired is the same as being loved. But what happens when admiration disappears and only your true self remains? The unconscious does not communicate through logic. It speaks through reactions. Why do certain words trigger you while others barely leave a mark? The answer rarely lives in the present moment. Projection is one of the ego's favorite tricks. Instead of facing the insecurity within, it convinces you to see it in everyone else. Have you ever condemned someone for arrogance only to discover your own desperate need to be recognized? That mirror is uncomfortable because it reflects what the ego desperately hides. The cruel truth is that every emotional overreaction reveals an unresolved part of yourself. Your anger is not always about today's conflict. It often belongs to yesterday's wound. Complexes grow stronger every time you refuse to face them. If you keep blaming the world for feelings born inside you, who is really controlling your life? And if the enemy has always lived within, what chance do you have until you recognize its face? The most dangerous people rarely create your ego. They simply learn how to use it. Why manipulate someone through force when their pride can guide them more effectively? Manipulators understand shadow psychology better than most realize. They know that praise can be more controlling than criticism, because it feeds the identity you desperately want to protect. The cruel truth is that anyone addicted to validation becomes predictable. Every compliment becomes bait. Every insult becomes a leash. Isn't it disturbing how easily someone can control your emotions once they discover what your ego cannot tolerate? Emotional awareness terrifies manipulators because they lose access to your automatic reactions. When you stop defending every opinion, proving every point, and chasing every approval, their strategies collapse. But if your ego dies, who are you without it? Something extraordinary happens when you stop asking, "How do I protect my image?" and begin asking, "Who am I beneath it?" Isn't that the beginning of real freedom? Jung called this journey individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole instead of merely appearing successful. Psychic energy that once fueled endless comparison suddenly becomes available for creativity, presence, and inner stability. The cruel truth is that your greatest exhaustion has never come from hard work. It has come from maintaining a false identity. You no longer waste emotional energy proving your worth, because your worth is no longer on trial. What happens when silence feels stronger than the perfect argument? Power quietly replaces performance. As your identity becomes rooted in awareness rather than approval, familiar relationships begin to change. But why does becoming authentic often feel like losing people you once believed would stay forever? Transformation begins the moment you observe your ego instead of obeying it. Before reacting, ask yourself, what exactly am I protecting? Could one honest question save years of unnecessary suffering? When criticism arrives, allow discomfort to exist without rushing to defend yourself. Isn't emotional discipline the ability to witness pain without immediately turning it into conflict? The cruel truth is that maturity is measured less by what you feel than by what you choose to do with those feelings. Practice noticing when your identity seeks victory instead of understanding. Every paused reaction weakens unconscious patterns and strengthens conscious choice. You are not becoming passive. You are becoming impossible to manipulate. Peace often feels lonely before it feels powerful, because chaos once made you feel important. When the noise fades, can you tolerate the quiet long enough to discover who you really are? One day you will realize that the greatest victory was never defeating other people. It was ending the invisible war inside yourself. What could be more liberating than no longer needing to prove your value? Your ego promised certainty, yet awareness offers something far greater: freedom. The people meant for your authentic self will remain, while those attached only to your mask will quietly disappear. The cruel truth is that every meaningful rebirth requires the death of an illusion. Jung believed that wholeness is not achieved by becoming perfect, but by embracing what has been hidden. When you accept your shadow instead of running from it, your fear loses its favorite weapon. Isn't true strength the ability to remain yourself, even when the world misunderstands you? The silent damage of the ego ends the moment consciousness replaces compulsion. You stop living as a prisoner of appearances and begin living as the author of your own inner life. If you choose awareness over ego, strength over validation, and peace over endless conflict, comment, "I choose my peace,"